Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.
Powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena, this is the Morning Sports Desk. I'm CJ Baumgartner. We also have Corey Tackman. Corey, today is the day. Highway 10 Cup Boys Basketball, New York Mills, Wadena-Deer Creek. We're going to talk about it all, what the challenge is, how you can listen, and just a whole fun day of boys basketball. We're going to talk about that and the Minnesota Vikings firing Kwesi Adofo-Mensah in a bombshell that happened literally 5 minutes after we recorded Friday's episode. So we are going to break it all down today. But first, Corey, let's break down the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
What's that, CJ? Did you say free chocolate chip cookie? I heard you say free chocolate chip cookie, didn't you?
Yeah, of course I did.
Online orders of $25 or more qualify for a free 8-inch chocolate chip cookie from the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. Just add it to your order from the deals or dessert page and enjoy a little something sweet with your Pizza Ranch favorites. It's automatically discounted at checkup. Full details on the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade Facebook page. Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in beautiful downtown Wadena.
Okay, Corey, Highway 10 Cup, it's a healthy dose of
basketball. Gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it.
I mean, it's a really cool way of doing things, this Highway 10 Cup. And if you don't know what it is, we have a ton of ways to explain it. Let's just go to the post we have at Wadena-Radio.com. It's the third annual Highway 10 Cup Challenge, and it's today as the New York Mills Eagles will host the Wadena-Deer Creek Wolverines in a boys basketball challenge. Every game from third grade all the way up to varsity will be broadcast live today on 101.7 FM, AM920 KWAD, and online at Wadena-Radio.com/KWAD, with coverage starting just before the first game at 3:30 this afternoon. Both teams are going to battle to win the road with games featuring current stars and the players of tomorrow. Games will feature matchups with both teams' elementary teams all the way up to varsity. First game, 3:30 in the Sports Center, which is the main gym in New York Mills. 6th grade team 1. At 4 o'clock, it's 3rd grade in the Activity Center. 4:30, C-Squad in the Sports Center. 4:45, 4th grade game at the Activity Center. 5:30, 6th grade team 2 at the Activity Center. 5:30, JV game starts at the Sports Center. 6:15, 5th grade in the Activity Center. And 7 o'clock, it all ends with the varsity game tipping off at the Sports Center complex. Highway 10 Showdown is a challenge between the New York Mills Eagles and the Wadena-Deer Creek Wolverines. Boys basketball programs, all levels from 3rd grade through varsity, play on the same day. Junior high excluded because their season wrapped up before Christmas. The program finishes with the better record at the end of the night, takes the reward of a traveling trophy back to their respective school. All youth games, of course, played in that Activity Center. The youth games, Corey, 2 15-minute running time halves with 2 timeouts per game. The clock will stop in the last 2 minutes of the game like normal. C-Squad game will be 2 14-minute halves with 3 timeouts per team. The radio broadcast will feature all of the action, Corey. We're going to have not just the breakdown of the games, we're also going to have interviews. I know we talked with Wadena-Deer Creek head boys basketball coach Kevin Thunberg. He's excited. He's going to hop on the air at some point throughout the broadcast with me and you. And we're going to try and talk with some players. We're going to have our guy Zeke there as well. Just follow Sports Cow for more information, for updates as games are happening. But Corey, what an opportunity that we get to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's a fun day. It's a really neat idea for these schools to put something like this together. I've wondered, I'm actually interested in asking, obviously there's no junior high games like you talked about, but it's not like the two schools didn't play during the regular season. So I wonder if they'll go back to November or December and decide if that's going to count towards the total. Because technically we have 8 games tonight. So if you include them 7th and 8th grade, that you jump it up to 10, whatever. I'm just kind of thrilled for this very unique opportunity. And I grew up in a community where the radio station was not an ever-present possibility.
Right.
Every once in a while, the radio station from New Ulm would swing by, KNUJ. There'd be a radio station in Mankato that would swing by if we happened to be really good as kind of one of the better teams in the area. But that was just not a regular thing. So for me as a high schooler, it was always kind of like, hey, this is like, let's put on a show here a little bit because it's going to be on the radio. I always thought that it's exciting. But as a 3rd grader or as a 4th grader, are you kidding me? If I would have known the radio station was going to be, I would have been through the moon excited. And I am 40 years old and just trying to relive it vicariously now through these 3rd, 4th, 5th, and on up graders. And I'm jazzed. I'm really pumped about this opportunity. I think it's going to be a cool experience.
You talk about it. Going back to 3rd grade, I mean, if I thought my game was going to be on the radio, I'd be like, where do you go once you reach the top? Like, what are you supposed to, like, this is it. This is what you play for. You play for people to care about it, to watch it, to do whatever, to listen to it. And I've had multiple people, whether it's talk to me in person or reach out being like, hey, I just want you to know my kid's really excited about this. Like our kid, like the kids they're stoked to get to be on the radio, to which point their siblings had to be like, what does it matter? You're not going to be able to hear your name on the radio anyways. But Corey, first of all, it does matter. Second of all, they can go back and hear it because we archive the stream at wadenaradio.com/KWAD.
That's exactly right. We'll live stream this whole kit and caboodle to go along with it. I think it is important to mention, CJ, before we move on here, there is a lot of potential overlap within our games. So we just want to be kind of out front and forward that, like, we are going to do our best to bring as much of the action as possible. It's going to be important, I think, especially to get ends of games. It might be that we start one game, go away from it, and then come back. It might be that we just start one game and stay with it, and then when it's over, you move to the next game and stay with it till it's over. It is going to be a little bit of back and forth, which I just want to be fair about that as an expectation, because the games are aligned such that there is going to be an overlap in where the games start and finish, which does impact how we're able to do those games.
Right, exactly. So just expect things to kind of be all over the place in the sense of we're going to be taking it everywhere, a lot of whip round coverage. We're just going to be doing our best to get the games and to get the information where they need to be. And again, just the whole point of this broadcast, Corey, there's 2 reasons why. This is the 3rd annual, but this is the first time we're helping out with the radio station. There's 2 big reasons why we did this. First of all, it's a cool concept, a traveling trophy. Everybody's involved. Like, it's just a really neat thing to try and break up the monotony of the regular season. And why not have a little, create a little rivalry, create a little buzz, have some reason to get excited. I know it's February, but in the middle of January. And the second reason we're doing this is we want to get kids' names on the radio. And that's exactly why we're doing this. We want to be able to talk about the 3rd grade team for New York Mills or Wadena-Deer Creek and shout out those kids that are doing that, because basketball is fun, playing is fun, the games are fun, but like to add that extra layer of like, and it's going to be on the radio. And it just shows that, one, we want to get kids' names on the radio, but also like it just shows that, to get on our soapbox, I mean, make no bones about it, our job is to cover sports in central Minnesota. That has been made very clear to us, and we love doing it, and we're glad that's our directive. And anybody can do play-by-play of a varsity game. Any radio station does play-by-play of a varsity game.
A lot of them do.
But they don't cover it like we're going to do it tonight. They don't cover the Unified Special Olympics State Tournament like we do. There are things where we want to take it to the next level, and we want to do all these things because it's cool and it's fun, and we want to get kids on the radio and make them involved. So that's exactly why we're doing this thing. And Corey, I'm just really excited to see how this thing's going to go today.
from the future stars to the varsity legends, as our promo goes. Just thrilled for this. Coverage is going to start just before 3:30, between probably 3:15 and 3:30, just to make sure we're fortunate to get a lot of advertisers on for this. So we're going to make sure we can accommodate them. But we're on from, let's just say 3:15 until that varsity game is over around 9 o'clock when our coverage stops. This is 6 hours straight of really unbelievable coverage. 101.7 FM and AM920 KWAD and online, literally anywhere. This is important for grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles and cousins and nephews and nieces and whoever, older siblings, whoever. WadenaRadio.com/KWAD, where it will also be archived when we're finished for you to be able to listen back.
Exactly. This is the Highway 10 Cup, brought to you by Carvenin Funeral Home. So it's a really, really fun thing that we get to do. Corey's so excited he has to eat the McDonald's French fries while we're...
It's a weird day for me, CJ. A really early morning, doing a morning shift.
Yep.
And then like 6 hours of basketball. So I'm trying to time my meals up here. If I eat right now and then eat again kind of right as things are starting, I should be able to get through the night.
We hope. At the very least, New York Mills concession stand, if you want to swing a piece of pizza our way, we certainly would not hate that.
Wait.
Just, the Minnesota Vikings fired general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. It happened 5 minutes after we finished recording. Literally, like, we were wrapping up our show on Friday, like, whatever, getting it ready to post. And then we get a text from our guy Zeke, who said Kwesi got the axe.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, did was there like a really good bait account that got that Zeke fell for or something? Nope, it's real. Adam Schefter within minutes tweeted Kwesi Adofo-Mensah had been fired as the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings.
Right.
And like the Derek Falvey firing for the Minnesota Twins. And we went all the way back on Friday show, and talked about that. So go back and listen to the full conversation about the Twins. But to recap, it's not so much the firing, it's the timing, right? Like, that's the thing that kind of gets confusing out of all of this, is the fact that Kwesi was at the Senior Bowl doing his scouting, doing the free agent prep, had no clue he was getting fired, and blindsided the building a little bit. And I think that it's basically what everybody's wondering is, why did you wait until now to pull the plug?
Do you have an answer after a weekend of sorting through all the stuff of what took them so long? Because it is an interesting thing. And
found out a lot about paternity leave.
Well, and we can dive into some of that extra stuff here in just a little bit, because I would say both sides of this really, really fired off a lot of their cannons. This was a weird. It's messy right now, CJ.
Right.
Interested in what have you? I have not heard or seen a reason why the timing was such. What is that reason that you've seen?
I think basically the timing is just the fact of the Wilfs met with coaches, they met with people in the building, and I think basically like they do every season, and they meet. And I think basically, I don't want to, maybe this isn't the appropriate way to word it, but I think lack of institutional control maybe is just the way to phrase it for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. I think based on the reporting, it made it seem like the Wilfs talked with KOC, they talked with other people in the building, and I think it's just this culmination of over his time as general manager of the Minnesota Vikings, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was unable to kind of control the room. He was unable at the beginning of his tenure, and the 2022 draft was a botch. And ever since that point, I think he lost the trust of the organization. And multiple stories noted that Kwesi already had an uphill battle, being an analytics guy in a very traditional GM room, because it's all Rick Spielman's staff. It was all people who had been hired over by Rick, who'd been in the organization. And Kwesi, whether it was his decision, whether it was the ownership, whether it was somewhere in between, didn't really bring in a ton of his own guys. So you had to win over a room full of people that saw who are scouts, former players, people who grind tape, who get up at 4 a.m, who miss the births of their kids, who then see this Wall Street guy come in who's all numbers and basically see that. And then he doesn't know how to control the room right away and has a bunch of missteps early. And I think was just never quite able to rectify that. Again, for better or worse, I'm not trying to say that one person is right or the other. And it was seen in decisions over the years of basically by the end that Kwesi had no control. He had gotten neutered multiple times, metaphorically speaking, in terms of the power he had in the organization. He couldn't, do X. He couldn't do Y. People didn't trust him to do this. And one of the case in points was the Adam Thielen trade, where the Vikings gave up way more than they should have for an aging Adam Thielen. And Kwesi was against it. But basically, the owners and Rob Brzezinski, the Vikings cap guy, basically went over his head and just called the Panthers and was like, hey, let's get this thing done. And it just kind of is this big thing of Kwesi didn't manage to get everybody going in one direction. He had some missteps early, and I think he just was never able to control the room. And I think if you're ownership, this is a big offseason for the team. This is a big offseason for Kevin O'Connell. And it kind of feels like, honestly, if we just want to wrap this up, it kind of feels like KOC had a little bit of an in-house coup and looked at himself in self-preservation mode and went, if we don't perform well this season, I'm getting fired. And I don't trust the GM to be able to get us in the right position. And so I'm going to go to ownership and I'm going to tell them in our exit meetings this season, we need to make a change because this guy ain't it. And I think overall, Kwesi just was never quite ready to become a GM. The Vikings took a chance on a guy and it didn't work.
Yeah. So you unpacked a lot there.
There's a lot. Yeah.
You unpacked a lot. But I want to answer because you didn't answer this just really quickly. Why was the timing the timing? And the timing was the timing because that was the timing is basically
and
like
also, we could also make the case of who did the Vikings just extend in the last week?
Well, it happened because that's when the Wilfs do this sort of thing.
Right.
It happened because the ownership meets with their people whenever they meet with their people, and then decisions were made. That's why it happened when it happened.
And the ownership wasn't willing to fire Kwesi in their own right, because if an owner gets fed up, they'll fire you at the end of the season.
Sure.
I think the Vikings were willing to be like, okay, we don't need to make any drastic changes. Let's give them one more year. And then, like you said, upon doing those interviews, I think realized, okay, if Kwesi doesn't have the room at all, what are we paying this guy for?
Yeah. So it really it depends on whose bullets you want to read.
Right, because both teams after that, you start texting Diana Rossini, you start texting Adam Schefter, you start this is now, you got to play the narrative game a little bit here. If you're Kwesi, you got to try and salvage your reputation. And if you're the Vikings, you got to let everybody know why this guy deserved to get canned.
Yeah, so there's a lot, right? There's a lot about that clearly come from the Vikings side of this guy. Basically, he wasn't good at his job, and we didn't trust him to do his job. We gave him opportunities. The organization gave him opportunities, and he went over on his opportunities, and then we didn't trust his decisions afterwards. And then there were the personal shots of like, he's not a personable, like he holds himself up in his office.
Right. And there were apparently reports that ownership had to tell him like, man, you got to get out of your office and talk to people.
So he's holding himself up in his office and he's not being personable. He's not doing he's studying his modules, whatever. That's a part of his job and part of the reason why he was hired. I'm just saying these are the reports that are coming out that are clear leaks from the Vikings side of things. And then there's the other side of it where clearly it comes from Kwesi's side where they're like, everyone took it personally that I wanted to take a little paternity leave for the birth of my kid.
Right. Well, and by the way, Diana Rossini had to backtrack and be like, because the Vikings definitely sent her a text and been like, for all the legal reasons, being like, we wanted him to take his paternity leave and we are fully supportive of that. But it was sources around the building. And you see that resentment, like you're talking about, of all these scouts who are like, how come he gets to come in here and do this? I skipped the birth of my child. I did all. And that's just, it's hard to lead a room that way.
Well, and also, if you're the person in charge in this instance, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, you're the person in charge. Tell your scouts to take paternity leave. And if they don't do it, that's on them from that point forward. But if the mixed messaging of we didn't take our leave at the birth of our kids, mixed with he wanted to take his leave, kind of implies maybe like they didn't know it was available to them, or they were told they couldn't, and then he was going to do it.
Written rule between all, because they're like, it's a badge of honor to be like, I'm a grinder. I'm like, I love football so much. Like,
it doesn't matter what the reason is. What exists is that there was clearly a miscommunication between the person in charge, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, and his scouting room and his scouting department and his team, that either you can or you cannot take a leave. And so, but anyway, my point, going back to what I was trying to say at the beginning, the Vikings fired their bullets. That was Kwesi's bullet back from behind the scenes. Like, listen, man, they fired me because I wanted to take a paternity leave and they weren't going to let me do, like, that's protecting his own humanity and his reputation and what.
Also the thing of like, they kept going over my head. Like my voice was getting smaller and smaller as the years went on. And they like, what was I supposed to do? I basically was getting bossed around by the end of it.
So that, yeah, I mean, you can summarize all of it and say he wasn't very good at his job, which is evident, by the way. Like, we don't need ownership or to tell, like, there's plenty of evidence as a fan to show us that, like, name 4 draft picks that worked out.
Right.
Name 6 free agents that worked out. Name the quarterback situation that worked out. Name a quarterback non-situation that worked out. Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Daniel, like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we don't need as fans any more evidence that he wasn't very good at his job. It just kind of all came to a head. The surprising thing is that every single report, CJ, was that we've known for months, if not more than a year, that this was a possibility.
Right. And things were weird.
There wasn't a Vikings fan I knew who saw that. We were all surprised by the news. And every single report was like, it's been pretty tough in this front office for a while now.
Right. And it's the thing of like, everybody goes, what are you hiding from us? Whatever. And I've heard people from the Star Tribune. I've heard other Vikings people who are inside the building or talk to people inside who like work for the team. Basically was like, it's really hard to sift out what's just rumors and what's just whatever. And what's actually like, okay, this has reached a breaking point. And now that there's the newsiness of, okay, well, he's fired. Well, now it's time to be like, okay, well, now that they fired him, now might be a good time to say, I've heard some other things. Whereas when you report that things are weird, it's hard to whatever. And here's the thing. There probably wasn't much infighting in the building when they won 14 games. When they were 4-8 and were in a bad spot, then all of a sudden things can get untenable pretty quickly. And that's, like you mentioned, the drafting, all that. If Kwesi mishandles paternity leave or doesn't, and the team views it as a bit, whatever the things about that, that's just one case in point. Or if worried about power dynamics in the building or whatever, if the Vikings, if JJ McCarthy was good, we're not happy. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah still has a job and we're just moving on with our lives, right? Like, that's also the thing at the end of the day.
It's a little twofold. If JJ's good and if Darnold doesn't, I think, honest to goodness, Darnold making the Super Bowl was like, it's a little nail, but it might have been the final nail.
It's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
But I want to touch on some of the reporting, because if you follow some of this on social media, there has been a minor back and forth between, well, where were these reporters earlier, where weren't? And I think it's important to remember or to think about that we're talking about actual reporters and journalism, right? And we're not talking about gossip.
Right.
So there is if this was TMZ, then they should quote unquote report it. But this isn't. All of these things that they're hearing, even though everybody's hearing it, and in hindsight, we know that it's justified. Like, we're talking about people and personalities and things that can be worked out or not worked out or
right,
whatever. So we can't be.
You can't just run to tell your secret the moment you hear it.
If you're upset that somebody locally didn't report on this earlier, there's a big gray area between reporting and gossip, I guess is my point.
Yeah, that's the right word.
not that the gossip can't be true, because in hindsight, again, we know that it is true after what we've been hearing. But some of those things, like, these people hear a lot of things and they know a lot of things, and not everything is worth ruffling feathers to make sure fans just like are up to speed. That's just not,
sure you have hashtag content. Yeah.
That's not a fair expectation for the amount of stuff that Adam Schefter knows, that Shams knows, that Kevin Seifert with the start, like, the amount of stuff that those guys know is considerably more than they tell us. And one of the reasons why they're good at their job, all of those guys and anybody else we didn't name, is because they're excellent at discretion. It's an important part of the job. It's an important part of being a reporter and a journalist, and not a gossip columnist.
Right. And that's the other thing too. You have to protect your sources too. You can't just go running to tell everybody the moment they tell you something, because then your source just won't tell you anything anymore.
Would it have been nice to know last June? Yeah,
right.
Of course it would have been, but that's just feeding the little gremlin inside of me. It's not actually right. It doesn't help me. It's just
What's the point of saying everybody's mad at each other if nobody's getting fired? Like if there's nothing, like, okay, cool. I get, like, everybody at certain points in their life has gotten annoyed at their boss, or their boss is annoyed at them, or something like that. That doesn't mean that every single time it happens, we all have to have it out in the open.
Not me.
Corey's a model employee. But the biggest thing in all of this is, like, if you've listened to some people, if you've read things, now in hindsight, all of a sudden some dots start connecting, where all of a sudden just a throwaway line from a podcaster, from a throwaway sentence in a newspaper clipping, you go, oh, okay, they gave us a breadcrumb, but it was very innocent, and it's like they weren't trying to, like, wink. They just would kind of like if you listen to Paul Allen's show, and he'll throw out a little nugget where you're like, interesting. And it's not meant to go any deeper than that sentence he just said in terms of a Vikings report. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing where you do realize it. So, but all of this is to say, Corey, I think we all can agree, even though the timing isn't great, here's my thing. And I talked about this as well with the Falvey thing. Like, if you are the person in charge and you feel like the person you've put in place to make key decisions can't do their job, there's no point in being polite about it. You just have to pull the plug. And I don't think I think Kwesi had his moments. I don't think he was as bad as some of his harshest critics say, but I certainly don't think I'm not going to look at him and be like, oh man, he deserved another year. Like, this is go time for the people who are in charge and still in the building for the Vikings. KOC, if they don't make the playoffs, KOC's getting fired. Like, they need to, this is their attempt to be like, okay, if this is it, we need to make sure that we consolidate and do the things we want, which means, Corey, everything kind of it feels like KOC's in charge in that building, doesn't it?
No, I actually disagree with that. I really, like, he is a main prime, as the head coach should be with all teams. He is a huge cog in this. So are you saying right now at this very instant? Yeah, of course. And when they hire someone else to be the GM, will KOC be a huge connecting rod between the GM and the team that's on the? Yes, of course. But, like, I think I actually disagree with you that if they don't make the playoffs, he's fired. And
I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying there's a good chance.
Yeah, no, I mean,
this kind of feels like this is it.
I don't agree. Yeah, I disagree with that. That has never crossed my mind. Even now, if they have 3 wins and it's a mess because organizationally now it seems like it's crumbling around them, but doesn't it, like, he's the mainstay in all of this?
I agree.
They got rid of the guy who was making it kind of crumble from within. So. Right. Yeah, no, I don't agree with that.
That's what I'm saying. There's no more running. If you're Kevin O'Connell, the coaching staff is basically going to run this draft. Rob Brzezinski is going to handle negotiations and kind of be the guy leading the front office. But make it just really, and honestly, it probably was happening last year anyways with drafting and stuff like that. The coaching staff already had major say in what was happening, but it just feels like now, like there is no more like, we're giving you the keys, Kevin O'Connell. Like this is for better or worse. I'm not saying it as like 100% bad thing. I'm just saying like it's the Captain Phillips line. He's the captain now.
Yeah, I think you're overstating it. Like, remember when the Vikings drafted Justin Jefferson? The stream was Spielman and Zimmer together. Like, that was the feat. They're a part of this always. I just think
Spielman had a clear rung above Zimmer.
Right, and the new GM will have a clear run.
They're not going to hire the new GM until after the draft.
I know, but one draft does not a decision maker make. Kwesi had 3 drafts to screw up, and 3. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I just think all of that is a little. You're right. He's the most important decision maker in the building right now, but that won't be the case in 2 months.
And who they hire as GM is going to be important too, right? Like if they hire George Payton, who is Spielman's right-hand man, assistant GM, he's, I think, the GM of the Broncos, but he basically has no power there. Like if he wants to come back and run the ship and the Wilfs will let him run the ship, and he comes in and the Wilfs want an adult in the room who's going to not be Kwesi and not let the coaching staff basically walk all over him, like then yes, there is a clear dynamic. If all of a sudden you hire somebody from the Rams who's good buddies with Kevin O'Connell, then and again, I'm not saying it is like O'Connell's number one in charge, but then all of a sudden it's a little different. I feel like the Wilfs probably prefer the former rather than the latter in terms of leadership structure, but it's just it's going to be fascinating as to what happens. And also, and this is the last thing we'll end on here, this gives ownership also a real good reason to bail on McCarthy if they want to.
Now, if you want to bring this around to decision making, again, I just, not that ownership doesn't have a say in this, but I think we need to seriously consider who's making decisions in the moment. Well, this is now where Kevin O'Connell is a decision maker, and who cares what the Wilfs have to say? If your head coach doesn't want him after the former GM was pushing,
but you get a very good PR chance to scapegoat it. And
that part makes total sense. But yet, if you are JJ McCarthy now, you better be playing good football in June.
By the way, the Wilfs they didn't say JJ McCarthy's name once at that presser. Like, hey, we got a quarterback we believe in and we're ready to go. Like,
why should they?
Right, exactly. They were very non-committal.
Yeah. So the next step. First of all, the turd needs to be flushed here. It's pretty. Some of the discourse right now is really he said, she said. Like just garbage. We got to flush it, but there's another one coming.
Mm-hmm. Well. We've been food poisoned right now. This was just trip 1 to the restroom. Trip 2 to the restroom is, what the hell do we do with JJ McCarthy? Right, exactly. And now and this is why you get rid of Kwesi, right? Because there are reports of, and again, to varying degrees of how effective this was. People talk about the Vikings kind of thought that they had a real chance to go up and trade for Drake May. And it never materialized. Now, I could have told you the New England Patriots were never going to trade that pick.
We all knew it.
And in hindsight, definitely knew it. But the Vikings, for whatever reason, believed that they could go up and get him, and that didn't materialize. And instead, they had to settle on McCarthy. And I think some people in the building thought Kwesi could have done more to get that across the finish line. There are reports, again, from these articles, that Sam Darnold was not, I think Adam Schefter said it, was basically not given. Like the Vikings were like $10 million less per year than the Seahawks were willing to give him. They couldn't get across the finish line with Daniel Jones in an extension. And I think a lot of people in the building thought that they were going to get either Arnold or Jones back.
And it seems like the Jones thing is more frustrating to the Vikings than the Darnold thing, because holy crap, what a deal he got from Seattle.
Right.
Of course you're going to leave.
Seattle gave him the moon, and they gave him the starting spot, and they gave him everything.
Which is fine, and that was not necessarily the situation going to be.
The Vikings were said they're going to trade McCarthy, and you're the guy, Sam, and here's the money. And the Vikings were not going to do that.
But the Jones thing seems to, the stuff that I've seen is like, why did this not? How is this guy not our backup going into the season?
Right.
What complete and now
I could have told you Daniel Jones would have been like, I'm going to go in Indianapolis, where they basically are going to.
I'm going to go. So like there's a this and that with everything.
Right. So if you're the coaches in the building, you're basically like, how come he couldn't get any of these across the finish line? And I think the 50-50 stance is like we're saying is like, well, it's not as black and white as that. But I think there is a belief in the building of like, Kwesi can't get some of this stuff across the finish line, and we need somebody who's just going to go and do it.
So there's a really important part in football, right? You cannot win without a good quarterback. So you put all these three pieces together. What would you rather have? Would you have rather over committed to get Drake May than have JJ McCarthy? Yeah, of course. I would rather have 2 less draft picks over the course of the next 2 seasons
than a guy who's going to be an MVP finalist.
Right. I would just rather I would rather have Sam Darnold, who can be my starter and be a good quarterback, than what we now think JJ McCarthy is. And again, this is all coaching staff person, right? You'd rather have Kwesi doesn't know if Daniel Jones is going to be the starter because he thinks and wants JJ McCarthy to be the starter. Daniel Jones thinks he's a starter, so he goes and takes a starter's job. But there's an important third piece here. What did the coaches think Daniel Jones was going to be? They all thought he was going to be the starter. They thought so. This is 3 starting quarterbacks that your general manager didn't do enough to keep from the perspective of the coaching staff.
And
that's tough, man.
And to put a bow on it, it's clear the coaching staff wanted Aaron Rodgers, right?
Okay, so there's a 4th quarterback. There's 4 quarterbacks that personnel-wise, everyone wanted before JJ McCarthy.
Right.
And there's only one person who wanted JJ McCarthy, and that person got JJ McCarthy and nixed the 4 other options. If you want to break it down that simply, that's why that guy got fired.
Right. And my thing, and again, I think that's probably how it went. The thing that I'm always thinking back of is like, if we talk all the time about how much power it seemed like the coaching staff was flexing and getting influence of with the GM in the front office, but then that was the one where everybody let Kwesi slam his foot down. I don't quite know how to square the circle. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't quite know what's true and what's not, but I think it's just very easy to also be like, it's easy right now from a PR perspective to let everybody know and believe that all those issues we had were from Kwesi and Kwesi alone. And now that he's out of the building, hey, we're in good shape. And look, I think they are in better shape without Kwesi in the building because it's clear that he just wasn't ready and it just wasn't working. Like there is no point in keeping him there ceremonially. You had to get him out of there. It's unfortunate. Seemed like a nice guy, seemed like a good dude, but he clearly couldn't hack it and you needed to get him out of there.
Yeah.
And
now
I can't wait to see Aaron Rodgers come back and complete the cycle this winter.
What's the old, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. You can use that in so many situations. The best time to have fired Kwesi was probably 18 months ago. The second best time to do it was on Friday. So they did it on Friday.
Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. See you.
Powered by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Follow the Morning Sports Desk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And watch every show on YouTube.